at pit exit, 1 minute.
Switch the tour on, switch the pump on.
Lining up for the third and final Formula V race at Mount Panorama. And Jason Bargwanna, the question is, can anyone checkmate the checkmate chassis of Ben Porter?
Well, he certainly has been strong this weekend, hasn't he? It's the only car to really get a breakaway, and he won that last race at the end with the safety car out, so let's see if he can go all the way in this one.
Gary Ogden and Michael Kinsella will start from the second row of the grid, and they could still be factors here.
Oh, anyone from the top 10 can really be a factor. The tow thing in Formula V racing, getting a tow from a long way back is such an important part.
But as we saw in the previous race, you can get the slipstream, but there's nowhere to go.
Tend to be 3 and 4 and 5 wide as they go up and down the mountain here at Bathurst. So it's a great opportunity for these guys to race at somewhere like Bathurst. Most of them are, this is the entry level of motorsport, and to really be racing around Mount Panorama is such an exhilarating experience for them.
Ben Riley from Western Australia will start from 30th. Formula V spanning right across the country. Can anyone stop Ben Porter? Stephen Butcher is sure going to try. He's got the jump from the grid and will lead to one.
That's the second time in a row Stephen Butcher's jumped from the outside of the front row to take the lead into turn one, but the problem is now he's in a position where he's vulnerable to that slipstream, that tow. All it does is the car in front breaks the air for you, so therefore the air effect or the wind effect on the car, the drag, is far less. So if you're tucking behind the car in front, it allows you to carry that extra 3 or 4 kilometres an hour, and then you can pull out and overtake.
And already Porter back in the lead again by the top of Mountain Straight.
Maybe he's got an extra 3 or 4 horsepower in that one, I'm not sure, but obviously he's got that car working extremely well. Got one right out wide. That's not where you want to be in a single-seater, I can tell you that now. Matthew
Pearce was that car that ran really wide, so it's Porter leading from Butcher and Ogden.
It's often been said they're like a swarm of bees as they attack the mountain. There's little Formula V race cars going everywhere, but these guys know exactly what to do. They push themselves in the right spot, they position themselves in a way that they can keep getting that run off the corner and really start thinking about their race. It's not about who can get to the first corner first, it's about who can lead that last lap.
Sweeping across the top of the mountain, that's Ryan Stott in the 56 Jacer. Already though, the top 3 are walking away. Nicholas Jones with our in-car lost some spots going up the mountain because he had no one to slipstream with. He was slotting back in for the aerodynamic benefits.
You can see he's just back to 3rd gear there, so that's about the only gear change they'll make here on the mountain. They'll up to 4th gear, and they'll run down the hill onto Conrod Straight, and you'll go back to 3rd gear again here. So you can see there's not a lot of steering movement. Dial the car in nice and slow, and be nice and smooth and clean. Up to top gear, and now it's a matter of running down the hill.
And top gear is 4th gear, but what sort of revs are we talking?
We're talking about 5,500 to 6,000 revs is where the maximum horsepower is. Around about 70 horsepower in these 1600 cars. So obviously they set the gear ratio up to make sure that they get to that maximum at the end of the straight.
70 horsepower, a little different from the 1200cc that you would have run. You wouldn't have known what to do with yourself.
70 horsepower. We used to have about 36 horsepower and a good engine. So yeah, obviously a completely different thing. The category, being over 40 years old, has gone through that change in the last couple of years, but it certainly still produces some fantastic racing.
Well, the world has changed just a little since Formula V made its debut. Sir Robert Menzies was the Prime Minister of Australia. The country was fighting in Vietnam at war, and we were about to go to the decimal currency system, so things have changed a little.
Well, absolutely. At the introduction of the category, you'd take the V-dub, 1200 V-dub, basically remove the chassis and the body and take all the componentry and stick it into a race car. And in fact, up until a couple of months ago, we had an old historic Formula V in the shed at home. So I'm still a massive fan of the category, and it is a great place for young drivers to start their motor racing career.
Speaking of drivers to start their careers, we've touched on how important it was for you, but guys like John Bowe and Larry Perkins and Cameron McConville as just a teenager making his debut as well. But have a look at this racing. This is where the racecraft that comes into play later in life is really learned.
Well, you can see you're in a situation here at the moment. You're on 2 wide, you've got one beside you, one up behind you. That was very close. Trying to run the outside at the end of Mountain Straight, but it's certainly heart and mouth sort of stuff, that one. But Stephen Butcher's still putting a lot of pressure on Ben Porter there. Ben's not pulling away in this race like he has done recently, and I think that Stephen might be able to put him under some pressure towards the end.
Ben Porter, the Formula V champ last year, 3 rounds to be held this year in the championship. The cars will head to Winton and the long straights of Symonds Plains in Tasmania.
There's 5 different chassis in the first 6 cars, so it just goes to show you where it comes down to in this category. You don't need to have the latest, greatest. You can have an older car that's well set up, well tuned, and well put together, and still be very competitive.
This race, in fact, has just been red flagged, so it will be stopped. We'll have a restart after the break.